I really don't think anyone in this space knows how crazy things are about to get. Even though we just saw one of the biggest moves in this space, it seems like no one cares. It's also possible that they don't know how big it was. If you're new, I hope you'll become a user by the end of this video. Here's a link to a post by Smoke Dog that talks about how SOB 121 was totally thrown out, which made things easier for banks and other institutions. Institutional investors are about to flood the market, but you haven't been paying attention because every major bank in the country has been quietly launching blockchain programs, products, and services, some for their institutional clients and others for their retail accounts. Let's say that one more time. Guys, Bank of America is part of this. The Fortune 500, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, Schwab, and Fidelity have also talked about this. It's everywhere. Walmart, Disney, Western Union, Starbucks, and more. Investors are now paying attention, and a lot of them are flooding the market. Let's check this out. Okay, now that SOB 121 has been overturned, which lets banks in, why do I think Ripple and XRP are at the front of this? First, let's watch this movie. I think you all remember this video, right? This is crazy. Bank after bank after bank. This response is a sign of the golden age when Ripple and XRP will be the most important currencies in the market. This comes from Paul Barron. Take a look at this response. Here is a list of all the companies that work with Ripple. Of course, you can see all of these different, man, this is crazy, but these are all SBI stocks. Just bank after bank after bank. That's right, guys. The difference between what's in the bank right now and the things they're likely working on today to start putting this plan into action even more is this. So the question is this a sleeping giant that might be about to blow up? Another thing to remember is that this list of Ripple agreements came out 6 years ago. Let's make sure that all of these are correct today. It's really tough, okay? I just want to be clear about that. We know, though, the court records show 1,700 NDAs. They have an NDA in place, so we don't know what those contracts were. We know that they talked with between 15 and 30 central banks. How many deals do you think Ripple has made in the last, 3 or 4 years? Brad Garlinghouse did say that they had more relationships in the US in the last 6 weeks than in the previous 6 months. I mean, there must be something like a longer list somewhere. Ripple has a list of all the partnerships they have with big banks that we don't know about. I can picture what that list looks like. Let's go over here while we think about this. Over the past 4 years, Ripple has slowly added hundreds of banks and money transfer services to the RippleNet community. More people have signed up with Ripple since the elections than in the 6 months before. This comes from Chad. Okay, also, I've been thinking about this too. I wrote something about this, right? As I said, people tend to forget about the relationships Medico had before Ripple bought them. Swiss Quote, Union Bank of the Philippines, Fifth Third Bank, BNY Mellon, Citigroup, UBS, BNP Paribas, JP Morgan, DZ Bank, and VP Bank are some of the banks that offer loans. After that, we'll look at Ripple's relationships with big banks, which offer a range of services, right? Standard Chartered, PNC, SBI Holdings, Fubon Bank, and BMO are some of the banks we have. Guys, this list goes on and on. I also said that because of NDAs, there are probably hundreds or even thousands of partnerships that we don't even know about. At this point, it's clear that Ripple is growing into a huge problem in the world of banks and finance. I also think that all roads lead to XRP, even ROUSD, since there are so many other stablecoins, and XRP is the best way to connect them all. And yeah, I mean, guys, when we look at Medico, I personally pay a lot of attention to me. We'll get back to that point in a moment, but I want to show this clip because it was taken at Davos and the person in it is Larry Fink. This is the start. It's important for BlackRock CEO Larry Fink to stress that I have a lot of faith in crypto, blockchain, and tokenization. I also want the SEC, by the way, this is a crazy claim. I want the SEC to quickly agree that bonds and stocks can be turned into tokens. Now, BlackRock is putting the heat on. This is a strong claim, but read this first. Being a big fan of crypto, blockchain, and tokenization, I want the SEC to quickly allow the tokenization of stocks and bonds. In other words, that will make things easier. Some of BlackRock's taxes would be waived, and the company would no longer have to vote by proxy because every owner record would be informed through tokenization of equities. This would save more money for more people. Having stocks and bonds would cost less because of it, not like a big. Also, I mean, BlackRock has made a lot of noise about tokenization. Why do I bring this up now? Because, once more, when we look at Ripple's security and the purchase of Medico, all of that was done through banks. It seemed like everything there was about banks. Banks and Ripple ownership work together on things like this. It all starts with who has care. Everything is based on custody. We're going to talk about tokenization uses. We're going to talk about business, DeFi use cases like lending and borrowing. It all starts with who has care, okay? In society as a whole, one name on this list. They launched their YEARSV stablecoin in November and said it would be available on the XRP ledger in 2025. Ripple custody will be used to power the connection. YEARSV will benefit from the security of the XRP ledger's near-instant payment and low fees that can be scaled up. It's clear that this was a big deal. This, however, made it clear why Ripple custody is so important and why all of their banking partnerships are so important, even the one with Medico. Don't forget that Société Générale is not a small bank. It has more assets than any other bank in France, after BNP Paribas and Crédit Agricole. Okay, it's also the 18th biggest bank in the world and the 6th biggest in Europe. If we look at the numbers behind this bank, we can see that they had about 1.48 trillion euros in assets. This bank is very big, once more, right behind BNP Paribas. And just in case you guys don't know, BNP Paribas has about 2.59 trillion euros in total assets. There is also a huge bank, okay? This is one of the biggest banks in the world, the 8th biggest in the world, and the 2nd biggest in Europe. Okay, I'm going to bring this up again because BNP Paribas was one of the big players that signed up to help buy Medico in May 2023. There are also clients like Citi, DZ Bank, DBS, BBVA, Standard Chartered, and German banks like Deca Bank. A lot of these companies have already said, listen, you guys are crazy because when we look at the deals Ripple has been making, these purchases and moves, they show us what's really going on behind the scenes. It's going to grow into one of the biggest banking networks in the world. Do not forget that Morgan Stanley was also in Davos and talked about crypto. The CEO of Morgan Stanley says that the company is working with officials to get into Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies for transactions. Bank XRP for this, but check it out. Business E-Trade is a big part of that, so you know about the store side of things. Thoughts on crypto under Trump's rule? What do you think might happen and what does that mean? It's about joke coins, of course. Do you follow the Trump coin or the Melania coin? If so, what does that say about what's going on? That being said, I believe there is liquidity, and that liquidity can show up in many different ways. The bigger question, I think, is whether some of this has grown up and reached escape velocity. Also, remember that time is your friend. As the saying goes, what you think becomes real over time. As a heavily controlled financial institution, the question for us is whether we can act as transactors or follow the money. We'll be working with Treasury and the other regulators to figure out how we can do that safely. And once more, the legal side of things with SAP 121 is what has changed everything. And even here, yeah, E-Trade's return on January 2nd was when we saw Morgan Stanley's $1.30 trillion haul. Once more, these big players are beginning to act in big ways. Also, keep in mind that Morgan Stanley has said that using a payment system like Ripple could cut down on fraud, speed up deals, and shorten the time it takes for settlements. Morgan Stanley thinks that Ripple is a great alternative to SWIFT for making foreign payments. Also, this is from Advi, we want to point out that XRP's consensus protocol system works much better than Bitcoin's. We should also say that Ripple has made a payment system that needs a central authority to oversee deals. This means that it is not directly